Well, you're listening to Millennial Meets Gen Z 90's edition, the podcast where one of us lived through the 90's and the other one is obsessed, yet discovering it all for the first time. So I'm Allison, the millennial who lived through the 90's.
I'm Hannah, the Gen Z, who's obsessed with the 90's and wants to learn more.
And today we're diving into one of my favorite movies of all time, Twister from 1996. Now, this is a rental on Amazon Prime, Apple TV, or wherever you rent movies since the days of Blockbuster. But honestly, I own this one. This one is just saved to my digital downloads. I will not let it go. So let's get into the synopsis for those of you who may not remember. Well, during the approach of one of the most powerful storms in decades, university professor Dr. Joe Harding, who is played by Helen Hunt, and an underfunded team of students prepares for the prototype for Dorothy, a groundbreaking tornado data gathering device conceived by her estranged husband, Bill, played by Bill Paxton. When Harding tells Bill that Dorothy is ready for testing and their privately funded rival, Dr. Jonas Miller, played by Carrie Alwys, has stolen the idea and built his own, Bill rejoins the team for one last mission. And that makes up the movie. So, this movie was written by Michael Crichton and his wife Anne Marie Martin. Now, Michael Crichton is the author. He wrote things like Andromeda's Strain, Westworld, Jurassic Park, Congo, like so many things, so many movies, and so many books under various pen names. And his wife, Anne Marie Martin, also helped co-write this movie. She was an actress in things like Doctor Strange, Sledgehammer, and Days of Our Lives. She was in a lot of episodes of Days of Our Lives. It was directed by Jan de Bont. So while Steven Spielberg wasn't the director for Twister, he actually was the executive producer on this film. And Jan de Bont is a well-known cinematographer, but as a director, he also directed things like Speed and Speed 2, The Haunting, and Lara Croft Tomb Raider, The Cradle of Life. So those are some of his other films. Honestly, I think of all of those, this is the best one. But the cinematographer side, really chef's kiss to how they were able to then get this movie to be like so beautifully done. But before we rewind and get into it, Hannah, what'd you think?
So I must just preface, I hate tornadoes. And for a tornado movie, I loved it. Like I was going into it, I was really surprised that I liked it as much because I don't like tornadoes. I've had a childhood fear of tornadoes, in fact. Like this goes back to
Your
child.
dad sucked away by a tornado as well?
No. No.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why I was so scared of them. Like, given living in Illinois, I don't know how common they are, but I had this weird thought that they would come and kill me. So,
Did you watch like The Wizard of Oz and see like the
yeah,
tornado suck the house?
I think that could have been why, because I watched that pretty young. So I watched that at like age like 8 or something. So maybe that like mentally stuck with me. But I
It's
remember
a scary part of the movie.
it is, yeah. And like
Yeah.
for the CGI in this movie, I thought I would be more scared because the tornadoes looked pretty realistic. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like it was scary. Like I was like in my bed with the covers over me with my eyes, and I was like, it's gonna get me through the screen. But no, I really liked it. And for this movie, I don't really have a favorite character. I really don't. Like,
Okay.
maybe it's Dorothy. Maybe my favorite character is Dorothy.
Dorothy, one, two, three, or four?
I like honestly the first one.
The first one, or maybe that was all played by the same one, by the same Dorothy. Who knows?
That would make sense. That would make sense. But no, I don't know. I didn't really have a favorite character. And I think maybe because I couldn't relate to any of the characters directly. And
Mm-hmm.
like when I have a favorite character, it's always someone that I personally relate to or someone that like I'll see the chaos and I'm like, I'm a little chaotic at times. But I
Yeah.
don't I feel like they all I mean they didn't have their shit together. Their stuff together. I'll bleep that out. But they didn't necessarily have their stuff together, but I don't know. I didn't really have a favorite character. I like Jo. She was cool, but I feel like you're supposed to like her. I feel like that's just kind of what you're supposed to like. So, women empowerment, women in STEM.
Well, first of all, when you said that you didn't have somebody that you related to, I was like, oh, they weren't chaotic enough. So I knew you were going to say that, which is so
Yeah,
funny because after we've done this for so long, I know that that's your go-to.
yeah.
But I think that like I like Jo, but I also think that she's like she frustrates me that she like when she's always standing there and you're like, move away from the tornado. Stop. Stop watching it and start going the other direction. But when you studied something for so long, I get the obsession with wanting to see how it works and wanting to see how it functions. But at the same time, it almost seemed like she had a little bit of a death wish, you know? So,
I completely agree with that. I don't know. It was kind of weird too, like the dynamic between her and Bill, where he was more worried about like her safety, and she's like, "No, I'm doing this. You have no
yeah,
safety." And then he was like, "No, like get in the car, like we're
yeah,
leaving." And she was like, "No, I'm good. We're doing this." Like her picking up
yeah.
sensors, that part when he was just like, "Let them go," and she was like picking them up, I was like, "Oh my God, get killed."
Well, in as a kid watching it, I really hated Dr. Melissa. And because she's like the other woman, right? And she's like his current love interest, and you want them to get back together, and that's part of the story. Um, but as an adult, I was like, that is a really strong woman. She is watching her husband be obsessed with something she had no clue, or her future husband, her fiance, be obsessed with something that she had no clue he was like completely obsessed with. See a side of him he probably was not showing to her at all, which feels like, who is this person? Who am I dating? Like, who am I with? What did I sign up for? And like, is he leaving all this stuff behind to be with me and not be his real self? And then the fact that, I mean, we'll get into it, but like when she leaves, she's so strong. So like as an adult, I feel like she's almost one of my favorite characters because she's one the kind of the whole purpose of her character is to explain what's going on. Like they tell her because she's the only person in the group that doesn't know and doesn't understand the science and doesn't know anything what's going on behind it. But so that's the whole reason that her character exists. But I also think that she's a little bit like she sets people up for a little bit of comedic relief, and she asks questions, and she's the one who's like very scared, and but she's a very strong woman for being terrified of tornadoes to be like, I'll be good, I'll get home fine, thanks, like I don't need you kind of thing, and this doesn't bother me. Is I was just like, as an adult, I was just like, wow, that I like her. So very interesting of watching it as a kid versus watching as an adult, but and I've seen this movie hundreds of times. So well, let's get into it, shall we?
Yes, we shall.
So, we open on Oklahoma in June 1969, a green sky and a storm coming in. We see lightning and hear the thunder overtop a local farmhouse. The farmhouse in the movie under the tornado is under a tornado warning as like the storm is raging outside. And a woman goes in and gathers her daughter, and then the father is telling them like an F5 is coming. The little girl, Jo, calls out for the dog to follow. This coincidentally was supposed to be the dog type is supposed to match Toto in The Wizard of Oz. So, it's his name's Toby, but it's supposed to be the same dog from The Wizard of Oz, which it was. Not the exact same dog, but like the same type breed. That'd be a really old dog.
Dog alive.
And as they run outside, they head to the storm cellar. Lightning strikes a nearby tree and crashes it to the ground. They hustle to the storm cellar and get the dog inside as well. They light a lantern, but the storm is pulling against the door, so the father goes to try to secure the door with the storm raging outside. And the door breaks loose, and the father is sucked out of the storm cellar with the door into the tornado. The little girl runs to get her dad, but her mom grabs her and they scream. And that is like how we open this movie, which is terrifying and scary and intense. And my least favorite part of the movie, especially because the entire time, no matter how many times I've seen this movie, I'm like, make sure you get the dog. Like I'm always like, don't leave the dog outside. Um,
That was a messed up
and they
part.
did,
And I
yeah, they didn't leave the dog outside. Just for the listeners, they definitely got it inside, and nothing happened to the dog. So
yeah, no, that was probably also my least favorite part
yeah.
because What if that happens to me, man? What if I get sucked up by a tornado? I don't know. Like that's terrifying that it just so easily went.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking that the likelihood is probably slim to none. Um, Unless you move to Oklahoma or Iowa, where the big, strong tornadoes come through, I don't think Chicagoland is having a lot of like really big tornadoes. So at this point in time, I make
Yeah,
no guarantees. Climate destabilization could definitely change
yeah.
weather. But also don't hold the door. Like grab onto something within the storm cellar because the tornado doesn't go in
Yeah.
a storm cellar,
Yeah, it's not just gonna be
goes
like
over top. Yeah. So just don't like stand at the door waiting to be sucked out. So that's a good plan. Okay. Write that down somewhere.
okay.
All right.
Don't hold the door. Don't hold the door.
So later, we see the aftermath of the desolated trees, and there's a tractor hanging from a tree, and the sky is clear and the birds are singing. It's so weird after a storm, like how calm everything is, and like how like it just kind of goes back to normal. Like animals are just like, "Yep, we're cool."
Yeah,
Um,
I don't like that. I really don't
then
like
Then we see next the satellite travels around the Earth in present day. We see weather satellite data coming in on a computer, and we're hearing the reports say it's going to be a record outbreak of tornadoes. Through the countryside of Oklahoma, we see a red truck driving along, and we're introduced to Bill Harding and Dr. Melissa Reeves as they drive to go catch up with Joe, who Bill says has probably already dragged her entire team into the field. Now, she asks if he's nervous seeing Joe, and asks if she's signed the papers. And we find out later, ooh, maybe a little bit. So, Bill Harding is played by Bill Paxton. Bill is known for Frailty, Aliens, and Apollo 13. He was also in Tombstone, True Lies, Titanic, Mighty Joe Young, Thunderbirds, Big Love, Million Dollar Arm, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., The Circle, and Training Day, the TV show. And Dr. Melissa Reeves is played by Jamie Gertz. Now, Jamie is known for her role in 16 Candles, Still Standing, and The Lost Boys. She was also in Jersey Girl and a few episodes of ER and Ally McBeal. And she also played Gilda Radner in the Gilda Radner movie, It's Always Something. She was in The Neighbors as well, and she did a terrific episode that I will always remember her for of Modern Family, where she drives too fast through the neighborhood. And I'm not going to tell anymore because it would spoil it, but it's the Slow Down Your Neighbors episode.
Oh my God, I love Modern Family. You have to spoil this for me later.
You have to watch that episode. It's called Slow Down Your Neighbors, and it's just funny. It's just so funny. So then we're introduced to Dr. Joe Harding, who is trying to fix her dish antenna on top of the vehicle as the voice below calls up, "Okay, Professor, hang in there. I think I fixed it." And we see the beautiful Helen Hunt as Joe. She's just freaking gorgeous, and she's just gorgeous in this movie. And they catch like the perfect light on her. It's amazing. But Helen Hunt is known for her role in Then She Found Me, Mad About You, one of my favorites, and As Good as It Gets. She was also in Swiss Family Robinson, It Takes Two, Girls Just Want to Have Fun, which is also a great movie. Peggy Sue Got Married, Project X, Dr. T and the Women, Pay It Forward, Castaway, What Women Want, which is also a great movie. And she was on a Friends episode where Mad About You and Friends had a crossover because um, Lisa Kudrow, who played Phoebe Buffay, her the whole reason that in Friends she had a twin was because her twin played a waitress on the show Mad About You. And so it was kind of funny that they had this crossover and they thought they like run into Phoebe at this coffee shop and they're like, "You work here too?" And she's just like confused and doesn't know what they're talking about. She's just like, no. And they're like, "Oh, like we were with you last night." And like they don't know that they're twins. So it's funny. Because when you watch Mad About You, like Lisa Kudrow plays this very disgruntled, very confused waitress that like has an attitude problem and like you'll sit down to a restaurant at the restaurant that she worked. I can't remember the restaurant name in Mad About You. But she works at this restaurant and like people will sit down and then she'll just like bring them food. And they're like, we haven't even ordered yet.
Oh
And
my
she's just like, oh, okay. And then she just walks away and never comes back. Like, and they're sitting there like, and so the service is so lousy at this place, which is funny because she's just so like, it's Ursula, and Ursula is like, um, just doesn't really have good customer service. So anyway, funny show, funny crossover that she does into that Friends episode. But yeah, Mad About You, great show. And just as another plug from our last couple movies ago, the woman that I met in DC that was in A League of Her Own, she was in that show Mad About You with Helen Hunt. She plays Helen Hunt's sister. So yeah,
God.
here's our.
Weird.
Okay. So as it sparks, we are introduced to Belzer as he climbs out of the van to get a reading. So let's get into the storm chasers. We'll give you the whole like who is who. So we have Tim, whose nickname is Belzer Lewis. His last name's Lewis. He's played by Todd Field, and Todd was in Eyes Wide Shut, The Haunting, Stranger Than Fiction, but he's actually a director now, so he directs more things than he acts in. Dusty is the really well-known Philip Seymour Hoffman. He is in Magnolia, Before the Devil Knew. He's in Capote. He plays Capote, Truman Capote. He's in The Master. He was also in The Yearling, When a Man Loves a Woman, Hard Eight, Boogie Nights, The Big Lebowski, Patch Adams, The Talented Mr. Ripley, Almost Famous, Red Dragon, Along Came Polly, Charlie Wilson's War, The Ides of March, Moneyball, and Hunger Games. And that is just a handful of things that he was in because Philip Seymour Hoffman is in a lot of things. Um, Haynes is the only girl on the student team, and she is played by Wendell Josepher. And Wendell is known for her role in Shameless, Intolerable Cruelty, and at TV. She was also in Last Action Hero and North, which North is eventually on our list. I don't think it's scheduled right now, but we will be hitting that movie eventually. It's really good. And then Robert, or Rabbit, as they're often calling him. His name is Robert Nurek. He's played by Alan Ruck. Now, he's very recognizable for a lot of people. He's known for his role in Star Trek Generations, Speed, and my favorite of all, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
And
Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
any
so he plays Cameron in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, like when he's like laying in bed, he's like, when Cameron was in Egypt land, let my Cameron go. Because he's like sick or pretending to be sick, because he doesn't want to do it. He's got melancholy and he's just so funny in that movie. Anyway, so you would recognize him in this movie as well. He's also in Spin City. He's in Cheaper by the Dozen. He's also in another Star Trek movie of Gods and Men. He's in Greek. He plays the Dean, I think, in Greek, the show. And he's in the new show Rooster with Steve Carell, where he also plays the Dean in this movie or in that show, which I haven't seen yet, but I'm going to. It's on my list, so don't spoil it. Don't spoil it for me.
I love
Now, Alan Sanders is played by Sean Whalen, and he is known for his roles in Never Been Kissed, That Thing You Do, so we'll be seeing him again. The People Under the Stairs, but he's also in Batman Returns, Waterworld, The Cable Guy, Men in Black, Charlie's Angels, and Jersey Boys. And then we have Preacher, who's Jason Rowe. He's played by Scott Thompson, and Scott was known for his role in Police Academy, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and he was also in Jack Frost and Blast from the Past. And then Joey is actually his real name, Joey Slotnick. And we just saw Joey Slotnick in A League of Their Own. He played one of Doris's fanboys. So the two boys that were constantly in love with Doris in A League of Their Own, and they were like following her around. If you kind of remember.
think I remember. Hey, so that's crazy that there was a connection there. Okay. His name it
Oh,
didn't come up when I
okay.
stuff connections.
Okay.
I did search up connections, and I do know some of the movies they were in. Yeah. So I did know that Bill was in Titanic. Don't know who his character was still. Zero facial recognition, but yeah.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of people in Titanic, so I'd have to look it up. Because Who did Bill play in Titanic? It's been a hot minute since saw Titanic. We'll have to look it up. Okay, well, Lawrence is played by Jeremy Davis. He's the youngest one, so he's the like newest one on the team. And he was known for his role in Saving Private Ryan, Solaris, and Secretary. He was also in the Laramie Project. Um, Oh, and wait, I didn't finish Joey either. But on Lawrence, though, Jeremy Davis, he was also in Helter Skelter, Lost, and the Sleepy Hollow TV show. But Joey Slotnick, I do want to point out, he was in They, Them, and Us, playing the marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Drive-Away Dolls. He was also in The Single Guy, Since You've Been Gone, Blast from the Past as well. So there's a few people that work together, Hollow Man and Boston Public. So I did want to make sure I mentioned that. And anytime someone's in the Laramie Project, I'm going to point that out because that is a very important movie for history to know. So,
Dang, sure. These are like famous actors and actresses. Dang.
yeah, I mean, they're in a they're in a lot of things, but I don't think that they would probably consider themselves like like top tier because they're not headlining the things. Like they're not the main characters and stuff, but they're still amazing. So,
Well,
um,
when I searched up Helen Hunt, I learned that she won an Academy Award for As Good as It Gets, and I was like, oh, that's so
yeah,
cool.
yeah. And you know that she was in As Good as It Gets with who played Frank in the last movie.
I did not know that. I did
Okay,
not
so that
know
was
tickets.
so she was if you remember in You've Got Mail, Frank, who's like the um oh my gosh, I'm now trying to use the wrong names. He was the boyfriend that was obsessed with his typewriter. So in As Good as It Gets, it's literally Jack Nicholson, Helen Hunt, and him. Like pretty much most of the movie. It's the three of them. So, and it was a good movie. It's not one of my favorites. It's a good movie. But also, I have a weird relationship with Jack Nicholson, so it's fine.
Relationship. It's funny.
What?
You have a weird relationship. That's funny. We need to unpack that at some.
My mom went on a date with Jack Nicholson, and like I found out because she told my friends while I was like getting ready to like go, I think to a dance or something. And so then I come out of the bathroom and they're like, "Did you know your mom went on a date with Jack Nicholson?" And I was like, "No." And they're like, "Is he your dad?" And I was like, "No." Like, you guys have met my dad. And then there was like this whole thing of like maybe Jack Nicholson is my dad. And it was like a joke or whatever because they've met my dad. So they know that that's not the truth. But it was just like such an annoying thing in high school that like yeah. And I don't know what happened. I don't want to know what happened, but like there was a coworker of my mom's that like had then later met Jack Nicholson and like he brought up, "Oh, like I work with this woman who you went on a date with like a long time ago." And it's like, "Oh, what do you do?" And it's like, "Oh, she's a landscape architect, whatever." And they like described my mom without telling her name, and Jack Nicholson was like, "Oh," and then gave her name. And I was like, "Ugh, that's just creepy. Like, why do you remember?"
That is
So, Mom, I'm sorry, but don't date Jack Nicholson. It's creepy. So,
that's funny.
there you go. So anyway, that is my weird relationship with Jack Nicholson. So when I see him in a movie, I'm just like, this is awkward. Why
Yeah.
did you date my mom? Just one date, but still. Okay, now that we're gonna shake that off, um, so off in the distance is a big storm. And we see Bill's truck pull up and the storm chasers who call him the Extreme. And Bill tells Melissa that Dusty's been chasing with them since the start, and then he asks where Joe is, and he leaves Melissa with Dusty, and Dusty says Joe is gonna wig when she sees he's back. And Bill responds, "I'm not back." Now Bill goes over to Joe and they exchange pleasantries. She asks him if he's seen the sky today. Joe says it's the biggest storm in 12 years, one lined up right after another, and NSSL says they've never seen anything like it. Bill asks for the divorce papers, and Lawrence says, "Welcome back, Bill." And Bill's like, "I'm not back," which in this whole opening sequence is like my favorite thing because he's constantly being told, like, "Welcome back, welcome back." And he's like, "I'm not back." Like he's getting real angry about it. And Joe asks what the urgency is. Is he getting married? And we find out he is. Apparently, she missed a page in the divorce papers to sign, and he asks her to sign it, but she wants to read it first. And then she finds out Bill left Melissa with Dusty, and she's like, "Oh no!" And goes over to meet her. Joe introduces herself and congratulates Melissa on the impending nuptials. Melissa says it probably seems sudden, but they wanted to do it before Bill starts his new job. And Joe says, "That's right, weatherman." Bill gets offended at her tone, and Joe admires the new red truck, which is funny the first time, and then it's even funnier the second time when she really likes that red truck. But we'll talk about that in a hot minute. So Joe says she thought she'd come out alone, that he'd come out alone, and she said it's about Dorothy. She's here, and Bill asked to see it. Joe says they built four of them, and she thought he'd want to be there for the first time out. It wouldn't be right without him. Now, Dorothy is an instrument pack for studying tornadoes. She's supposed to go up inside the tornado, open up, and then release hundreds of sensors inside the tornado simultaneously, radioing back the data about the internal structure and other details like I think moisture content and things like that too. So Melissa asks how you get it into the tornado, and Bill says you got to get it into the damaged path, and then you have to get out before it picks you up too, or the suck zone, as Dusty likes to say. So they say that the tower is going up 30 miles up the dry line, and everyone takes off to go chase it. Now, I have no idea what the dry line is, and honestly, I did not look that up. So if you ask me that question, I won't be able to answer it. But I assume it's like some kind of geographical feature.
Yeah, probably.
Bill and Melissa says she can handle it. They know what they're doing. That, he's telling her they know what they're doing. But then they realize that Joe didn't sign the papers, so they end up having to chase the chasers. Now, Melissa says she finds it very interesting, so she's kind of like, "Oh yeah, we can tag along." And just then, a black truck pulls up alongside as they had taken off, and we're introduced to the antagonist of the movie, Dr. Jonas Miller, played by Cary Elwes. Now, Cary is known for his role in Kiss the Girls, Robin Hood Men in Tights, which is a big movie for him, Saw, and one of my absolute favorite movies of all time, The Princess Bride. Now, he was also in Glory, Days of Thunder, Hot Shots, The Jungle Book, Liar Liar, The X-Files, Ella Enchanted, Georgia Rule, and most importantly, to me anyway, he plays Pierre Despereaux in Psych. So back to the Psych shout out. Apparently Bill, Joe, and Jonas all started in the same lab, and Jonas went out and got corporate sponsors, and Bill says he's in it for the money, not the science, and has no instincts. So Bill radios up to Joe that Jonas is here, and the black van pushes Bill's truck off the road, and he pops the tire on a pipe. In the next town, Bill drops off the tire for repair and sees Jonas with DOT, or digital orthographic telemeter, essentially a version of Dorothy, and he's explaining it to the cameras. Bill goes to punch him, and Jonas says his is better, and Bill's idea was unrealized. And then he comments about his weather reports, and Bill is ready to punch him again, but their team holds him back. Now everyone heads inside to the diner once they break up the fight, and Bill stays outside as the sky turns green. Bill picks up the dirt and sees how it blows out of his hand, and he drops it to the ground, and Jonas tries to get their heading inside. Melissa asks Joe if she's still in love with him, very awkward but direct, and says she hopes it's not a desperate attempt to keep him in her life. And she's just like, "Check, please." Bill tells everyone to saddle up. He tells Melissa to hang in the back. He's going to ride with Joe, and they take off. Jonas sees their team leave, so they follow behind. Melissa's phone rings, and she gets a patient calling to discuss sexual inadequacy, which is how we learn about what she does. Joe asks about Melissa and where they met. Bill says he doesn't want to fight, and Joe says she's trying to make a conversation. She's trying to make conversation. He tells Joe that Melissa is a therapist, and Joe says, "Yours?" And then Bill goes on this long rant about everything. Out the window, we see a funnel and head in that direction. They head in that direction, and Jonas is not far behind. They strategize about how to get ahead of it, and Joe asks Bill if he's lost his nerve. When they veer into the ditch, into the field, and they get stuck in a rut, a really deep rut, and the tornado is getting awfully close to the vehicle, and they can't get out of the rut because it's too steep. They end up crashing the truck into a bridge and have to get out of the car. Joe tries to get Dorothy out of the truck, but they don't have enough time, and the debris is like too much. So they grab a hold of a post under the bridge and hope that it holds. Now, further back, the crew is catching up, and Joe says, like, where's my truck after the storm passes? And it just like crashes in front of Melissa as she narrowly avoids it. And Dusty goes up to her and he's like, what was it like? And Joe says, it was windy. Just then, Jonas shows up. His driver, Eddie, suggests that maybe they stop, but Jonas says to keep driving. Now, Eddie is played by Zach Grenier. Zach is known for his role in Deadwood, Ray Donovan, Debs, The Fight, and Fight Club. He was also in things like Problem Child 2, Cliffhanger, Tommy Boy, Shaft, Swordfish, 24, The Good Wife, and The Good Fight, most recently. Joe gets her belongings out of the upside-down truck and asks Bill, you got full coverage on that truck? And he says, liability only. And he's like shaking his head. And Joe says, that's a very pretty truck. Melissa says, thank you. But Bill says, don't even think about it. No way. And then we see Joe, Bill, and Melissa driving that pretty new truck right in front of the group with Dorothy 2 in the back. Because they lost Dorothy 1. They chase after the next tornado, and Jonas and crew are ahead of them. Jonas's information and the weather data don't seem to align. Bill starts to catch up to Jonas, but then he looks at the tornado and drops back. He says it's a sidewinder and it's going to shift its track. Now, Jonas realizes they're going to intercept. Lawrence says it's an F3. Joe and Bill tell the crew to hang back as they proceed ahead. The truck proceeds ahead and they see the tornado like in the water. It's coming up out of the water and then it splits into two and what we call sisters, twister sisters. And then we see a cow fly by. Cow. And Melissa keeps taking patients' calls and says she needs to hang up. They have cows. And Bill gets too close to the Twister sisters, and there's nowhere for them to go. The sisters surround and twist the truck around, and then the tornadoes dissipate. Bill and Joe jump out of the truck and celebrate, and Melissa is totally freaked out. Too close. Yeah.
So I thought it was crazy how they just like how quick tornadoes can just.
Yeah, because, well, there is a lot of buildup. It takes like the perfect, we'll talk about this later, but it takes like the perfect conditions for a tornado to form. And so a loss of any one of those conditions the tornado loses steam. And so a change in some of those conditions can cause the tornado to just dissipate to nothing.
That's terrifying. I mean, that's like good, and I guess for the people suffering with the tornado, but that's also horrifying. Okay.
Okay. Well, the crew celebrates and they say that they're close to Wakita. And Joe protests, but they end up at her aunt's house. Now, Aunt Meg greets Bill and crew, and the crew cries for steak and eggs. And Aunt Meg is played by Lois Smith. We saw Lois in one of our movies. She was Mama Threadgood in Fried Green Tomatoes. Lois has been in things like 5 EC Pieces, Lady Bird, Minority Report, and East of Eden, Somerset, and The Doctors. She was also in The Laramie Project and recently in a few episodes of Elsbeth. So if you've seen her recently, that's where she's been.
I feel like there aren't as many connections in this movie, like as the other ones.
So many. All right, well, they all sit around the table and living room and eat food, and they load up Melissa's plate as she's very uncomfortable as they slap like a giant steak on her plate with a bunch of potatoes, and she's just kind of looking at it. I don't know if she ate anything, honestly. On TV, Jonas is pandering to the camera, and Dusty says he's gonna rue the day he came up against the Extreme. Melissa asks why they called Bill the Extreme, and they say it's because he's the most out of control son of a bee in the game, and then he says he came in second. The crew tells Melissa about how a naked drunk Bill threw a bottle up into a twister and it never hit the ground. Bill says there was once an evil Bill and he killed him. Joe gets cleaned up before they leave. And this is when they explain the Fujita scale to Melissa. So it's about the destruction of a tornado. Bill says an F4 would relocate your house efficiently. Melissa asks about an F5, and they tell her it's the finger of God. Only Joe has ever seen an F5. Aunt Meg says he didn't keep his part of the bargain. She's telling that to Joe, to spend his life pining for Joe and die miserable and alone because that's what we want for all of our exes.
Yeah, I
We
agree.
want you to pine until you die miserable and alone.
Yearning. We
And
love a
as
man.
much as I love them, like there's people that I love and I hope that actually that they're happy. That's still kind of secretly also what I want. So it's fine. Fair. Now downstairs they hear there is an F3 and they take off. On the TV we see Jonas take off as well and Melissa hops in with Dusty. Aunt Meg says goodbye to everyone, hands a bag of food to Dusty. They go off road and Bill gets Joe wired with the radio. Rabbit tells them to turn towards the farm and he says on the other side of the brush is the highway. They drive through the field and end up coming out on the highway right almost into Jonas. I will tell you that this happened to me last year. We like did an off-road trek trying to get around a lot of traffic and we were like flying through this like two track up north and we didn't realize that it came like out right into like a very busy road. So it was like ah because you're like come you pop out of the woods and then there's like lots of cars and I was like oh no. So we probably surprised all of them as much as they surprised us, but every time I see that shot, it reminds me of the thing last year. So,
I've never seen like as much off-roading as there was in this movie. Like I've never seen someone off-road in real life. So seeing this, I was like, oh my God, they're
you
driving through.
gotta get out more.
Yeah, true.
Um, so they drive through the field and end up coming out right almost into Jonas. As I said, they're driving, and then Bill tells Joe they need to make a right turn and get off that road. Now, Jonas decides not to follow them and he continues straight. Rabbit is desperately trying to keep up with directions, and they're told the tornado should that they should be encountering it any minute. They don't have a visual. The base is over a half a mile wide.
Oh, hell.
Insane.
Uh-uh.
Yeah. Now they have hail, and the crew pulls over to track the storm. Bill climbs back into the back in the hail to ready Dorothy. Joe and Bill are getting hit with debris. Back with the crew, Melissa says they're all crazy, and Joe is the craziest one of all. Joe dodges a boat, and they pull over and start getting Dorothy unhooked as the tornado starts taking out power lines. The pole pushes Dorothy over, knocking her sensors everywhere. And then the storm loses power, and the tornado just dissipates again. But it's back building. So Bill makes Joe abandon Dorothy. Joe and Bill get into a fight as she thinks that they can still get it up and tries to grab the sensors. She says he'll never understand that he hasn't seen it miss this house and miss that house and come after you. He says, when is it going to be enough? How close do you have to get? And he goes on to tell her things go wrong. You can't explain it. You can't predict it. Killing yourself won't bring your dad back. I'm sorry he died, but you got to move on. Stop living in the past and look at what you've got right in front of you. She says, what are you saying? And he says, me, Joe. Now, back with the crew, Melissa's upset. They're hearing all of this conversation. At the National Weather Service, they're tracking two cells they hope don't converge. They drive to another town where The Shining is playing at a drive-in movie theater, and Bill is listening to the radio. Melissa checked into the motel, and Joe goes to get some coffee and goes to sign the divorce papers. When Bill walks up and orders a coffee to go as well, he says he was thinking about the sensors and how they were scattered, and wonders why the funnel wouldn't pick them up if the base was too light, maybe. In the motel, the TVs go out, and Bill and Joe notice that the TV goes out at the concession stand, and Bill looks up at the sky. In the dark, you can actually see the tornado as it's illuminated by the lightning. That is my biggest fear, is like not seeing it and like having to watch through the lightning. That's pretty scary. Everyone runs around as Bill shouts to get everybody underground now. And Joe watches it and warns the concession stand people to get underground. They all run into a large barn and get down into the pit. Joe gets scared he like Joe gets like the scared Lawrence, so it's like the young kid out of the truck. He was the one that she was like, get out, like, and he's like tucked down in the truck, and she's like, no, you gotta go.
Was
They climb down.
like one of them of her just like standing there helping people and just like staring up the tornado and not listening to Bill. But I thought that was a
Yeah.
really nice scene because it kind of, I mean, it wasn't nice, but it kind of showed her passion for tornadoes. And I thought that
Yeah.
was
Yeah. I like that she was like running around helping people. Um, they climb down into the pit as the tornado rips through and a hose comes loose and flails around and Preacher grabs it, but then is hit by a flying hubcap that sliced his forehead. Joe grabs onto him. A sign crashes through the barn and pushes a car on top of the edge of the pit. Melissa doesn't want to be part of this anymore, and that's what she tells Bill. Um, Back at Meg's, she's reading and watching an old movie when wind chimes and sculptures outside kick up. We see the aftermath of the tornado just sideswiping them. And Joe asks Dusty which way it's headed, and he has to tell her it looks to hit Wakita head on. So they head back to Aunt Meg. Now, Melissa says she's going back, and Bill says, good, you'll be safe at the motel. And she says, no, she's saying goodbye. She can't compete with this. She doesn't even know where to start. She's also sure that she's not even sure that she's that upset. Bill says he never meant for this to happen. Melissa says she hopes that Meg's okay, and Bill asks, well, what about her? And Melissa says, oh, don't worry about me. I know my way home. And that's where I was like, I like this woman because she is so strong to like recognize there's too much baggage here. He's still in love with her. This isn't for me. And like, I can get my own way home. After all this, she just had all this traumatic stuff happen, and that must have been such a strong move for her to be like, I'll figure it out. I'm a big
yeah,
girl.
I agree completely. I also thought it was cool that she was a therapist. I thought that was cool.
A reproductive therapist. Uh,
I don't
so
like that. You know,
Well, they get to Wakita and they see the devastation, including a family just like Joe's when she was little. They had no warning. They get to Meg's house and it's barely standing. Joe and Bill jump out of the truck and Joe goes inside, climbs up the like roof line essentially and gets in through an upstairs window and then climbs down with Bill. The house is ready to collapse. They hear the dog Mose barking and Joe and Bill find Meg trapped under a beam. Dusty and the crew climb up and help her get Mose out of the house, and her out of the house. They say that they're going to take Meg to the hospital. She says she's going to drive herself. Rabbit tells her, honey, your car is in a tree around the corner. You're not driving anywhere. Bill gets Mose out of the house just before the house collapses because I that's the second time I was like, where's the dog? Like, I
really.
swear if the dog dies in this movie, I'm flipping tables. Um, this was an F4 that had hit Wakita, but an even stronger F5 is going to be just south of there. And so Meg says they didn't have any warning. She couldn't even get downstairs. Dusty interrupts Meg and Joe to tell her there's an F5 and tells Joe to go stop it. Joe says she doesn't know how, and Meg says yes, she does. She's been chasing it ever since she was a little kid and tells her to go do it. Now, looking at Meg's sculptures, Joe gets an idea about how to make Dorothy fly. Uh, and Bill says he wants to get the last two Dorothys on the back of his truck, and they need every aluminum can and cutters that they can find. They to reattach the sensors with aluminum can pedals, so it, like kind of puts these pedals on them so that they can spin. And then they dump them into the Dorothys. I will say that it was pointed out that that's the Pepsi can placement because I guess all of the cans that they found, I feel like I saw a beer can in there, but somebody else posted that it was like pretty much all Pepsi cans, and that when the balls spun, it made like the Pepsi logo. I was like, oh, interesting. Maybe that was a Pepsi can placement. I didn't notice it though. Well, Joe tells the crew not to follow too close. Bill says they're going to go into put it in the middle of the road. They take Dorothy number three, they get her set, and they take off. They think it's perfect, and they pull ahead and pull over to watch. The tornado chucks the tree and knocks over a Dorothy, of course. And another tree gets chucked and jacks up the back of the truck and spins them around. And they try to get off the tree but can't. And then they see a semi-gas tanker come sliding towards them. It bumps into them, freeing them before being sucked back up. As they drive away, it gets thrown into their path and they get around, like through it as it explodes. The tornado base at this point is a mile wide. Now, Jonas is ready to get into place and he's right alongside the tornado. And Joe tells Jonas the pack is too light and to anchor it, but he doesn't really seem to care. Bill tells Jonas to hang back because the tornado can shift and come right at him. And Jonas decides to ignore Bill's warning. Bill tells Jonas and Eddie again to hang back, and they don't. The tornado shifts and they get skewered. And then the truck gets picked up into the tornado and they get dropped into a fiery explosion. What do you think of that scene?
Um, okay, so it was terrifying, but I did appreciate how Bill like actively tried to help them. You know what I mean? Like I thought that was so sweet, especially having this be like his arch nemesis and stuff like that. Like I thought the fact that he cared enough to do that was really sweet, but then they didn't listen. So it was kind of their own faults. Like it was sad, but it was kind of their own faults. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, I
I
mean,
mean, everything that they're doing is for the safety of others.
yeah.
So technically, the enemy is the tornado, is not Jonas. Jonas is just like an acquaintance of theirs that's going about it the wrong way.
Yeah.
But Joe was trying to help him at least get the science right. Like,
Mhm.
if we lost all of our options, we have one left, and somebody's going to get it. I
Yeah.
hope that it's done right so that you have an opportunity to get it. Like, we want the data. We just want to save people. And then Bill is like, it's not worth dying over. But yeah, he didn't listen.
No, I thought that was crazy. And I also didn't like how Jonas responded, like over the thing.
He just like clicks it off. He's like, I'm not listening to you.
Ignored him. And I thought that was crazy because if you
He thinks
don't,
they're just trying to sabotage him.
yeah,
Right? So
yeah,
he doesn't believe them. And then, of course, like Eddie's the one driving. So technically, Eddie could have pulled over at any time and made a good judgment call, but he didn't either. So,
mm,
yeah, they got skewered and killed. Whew. Well, the crews radio to Joe and Bill to get out of there as fast as they can. The ground speed is increasing. The tornado goes through a tractor sales station and picks up all the tractors and keeps chucking them. And then a house gets rolled in front of them, and they end up having to drive through the house.
yeah, right. I thought that was so
And
funny.
Bill's like, I think we're going in. And then Bill says, maybe we should get off this road. Now, Joe climbs into the back to prep the last Dorothy. This is the final one that they have. Bill drives off into a cornfield to punch the core. They set the cruise control and bail out of the truck into the cornfield. The sensors all get picked up by the tornado and fly free. And the truck also gets picked up by the tornado and they start actually getting data. So it was successful. But then the tornado shifts, and Bill and Joe realize that they need to get out of there fast. They take off running to the side through the cornfields towards the farmhouse and barn. When they reach a fence, the fence starts getting lifted as they're running. The horses take off as well as Joe and Bill run towards the barn. It takes a lot of effort to get the door open, and they finally get the door open to the barn, and they look above them with where the barn is hanging like sickles, knives, blades, and farm implements like hanging overhead. And Joe says, "Who are these people?"
Yeah, that was scary. I did not like that scene. I was like, this is crazy. What? Why? There was a
And
machete too, I noticed. Why is there a machete? Like what?
Bill and Joe leave there and run through the barn to the other side as the tornado sucks the roof off the barn, destroying the barn and sending it and the farming implements over their heads. They get to a well pump and the pipes go at least down 30 feet, so they decide to anchor to it with leather straps. Now the tornado rips the building apart around them and they get sucked upwards and they're floating up while being strapped to the pipes still. They see the inside of the tornado. After the tornado dissipates, a storm cellar opens. A mom and dad and three kids come out. The horses are running around free, and Bill and Joe are lucky to be alive and grateful. The crew comes to pick them up. They argue who has to do the analysis and run the lab. The crew shows up and they tell Joe and Bill to check out the sky, and Joe says, "You know what? I think we've seen enough." And then they kiss as the group celebrates the debris of the tornado path.
Yeah.
So, before I ask what I miss, I do want to share a few things that I learned about this movie. So last year at Detroit Comic Con, my dad and I attended a showing of Twister with a Q&A with Helen Hunt. So we got to see Helen Hunt and like watch the movie with her and then listen to a question and answer, which is amazing because she's wonderful and she's lovely and she's so beautiful. And it was also really cool because a lot of real life storm chasers were in that room. Like a dozen storm chasers were in that room. Now, this movie inspired a generation of people to go into meteorology and storm chasing, which is crazy. So when Bill Paxton died, they actually did like a call out uh over the radio and a bunch of other things to commemorate his life and the passing of his death, which never happens. And that was the only person outside of the meteorology that they would do something like that for. But yeah, it was very representational because his passion for meteorology and storm chasing is what got people into their career. So it was a very good movie for that. This movie also, because of the cinematography and the sound and the noise, it was actually a very heavy bass surround to hit the tornado noises. And so the film was actually notorious for destroying like some sound speakers in theaters. Like it would blow out the speaker. And people complained about how loud it was too. Now, the movie itself was filmed in both Iowa and Oklahoma, so not just Oklahoma, but Iowa as well. And then we have two more direct connections to other movies we've seen. So, are you ready for those?
Yes.
Okay. So, the CGI cow that's picked up by the Twister was actually based on the CGI zebra from Jumanji.
Oh my God, wait, that's cool. I was gonna bring up the CGI too, and how apparently, like according to Google, it was like pretty extraordinary for the time. That's funny.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So they used the zebra and because in the Jumanji movie, I think when it's being sucked back into the game, it's like picked up. And so they used that and then just changed some shape and then they were able to change where the colors were and they were able to do the cow.
That's pretty cool. Wow, yeah. Yeah, Jumanji had pretty
So,
good CGI too, so that's kind of interesting.
uh, number two, Tom Hanks was originally slated to play the role of Bill. But it wasn't what he wanted to do with his career. And he had just worked with Bill Paxton on Apollo 13. And he thought that Bill Paxton would be a better like candidate for this movie. And so he actually helped him land the role.
Oh my God, wait, that's sweet. Yeah, I can't imagine anybody but him playing. Like I could not
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah, it's not a Tom Hanks role. And there was a bunch of other people that were up for the role as well, but they had really like thought they had slated it for Tom Hanks and it was just like not
Yeah.
really the where he wanted to do with his career. So, and yeah, it was perfect for Bill Paxton. So, what did I miss?
The driving scared me. Seeing them drive, just, the debris, everything like that just scared me. I was sitting there and I was like, I could never be a storm chaser because I'm a little bee about driving, so could not do that. They were so courageous. I
That's so
also
weird.
I also have it written down. This is the scariest thing ever. I think that describes my hatred for tornadoes.
Yeah, I wanted to be a storm chaser after watching this movie. Yeah, I was like out in my little tiny geoprism chasing storms with my boyfriend at the time. Probably like I said, I think I said this on our last pod, but like as an unwilling passenger, I'm sure he was like, "Where are we going?" And I was like, there's supposedly a tornado, let's go find it. We never found one other than like I think I told on the last pod, like there was a tree that came down, but other than that, yeah, never found a tornado. I was very disappointed, but now I have been in a lot of storms since then, and it has made me nervous about driving in really bad thunderstorms because there was one time where I was stuck like almost too close to an intersection and could not drive across it and couldn't back up because the rain and storm was so bad you could not see outside your windows at all. Like couldn't see the road, couldn't see the front of my car, couldn't see behind me, and I was like kind of close to the edge of the I think I was kind of close to the edge of the front of the intersection, and I was so worried someone was going to come through and hit me. Um, and so, or the tornado, because there was a tornado that was in the area and I didn't know where it was. And like, um, so I think that it would be really great. Like they tell you, there's apps that you can get that'll tell you if there's lightning striking near you or has lightning has struck near you. I think it would be really nice for it to be like, there is a tornado like a block from you. So I would love that. So since my young high school days of driving around thinking I'm gonna be a storm chaser, I am a little bit nervous when I've gotten caught in bad storms, but it's
Yeah.
exciting though. It's like you want to go find it. But yeah, I don't know why I chose the lightest car in high school to chase tornadoes with. Like, I'm pretty sure a gust of wind could have picked up my geoprism and carried it away. Like,
So, oh
it
my God.
doesn't even need to be an F-Zero. It could have been 20 miles an hour and it probably would have blown my car over. So,
Oh my God. See, this is why I don't even drive in rain. I'm good. I am good. I need to get over it though eventually. So it's coming. It's coming. But my overall favorite scene is when they're anchored and they're in the tornado and they look up and you can see the sky like through the tornado, like in the middle of it. You know what I'm talking about? I
yeah.
thought that was like so impactful and
Yeah. It's
tornado.
not real though at all.
Okay, that's not okay. I was gonna say
Yeah.
like, that.
So when we get into the science, we'll talk about it a little bit, um, but essentially there is not just one swirl in the tornado. What they've learned is that there's multiple swirls within the tornado, and that's what keeps it going.
Oh, that's scary. I don't like that. I like the idea of there being one. But that was my favorite scene nonetheless. I thought it was cool. And
It's very pretty, yeah. But they
yeah,
also probably would have like had their arms and legs sliced off by the debris
yeah,
because like more than anything with a tornado, and I'll tell you who I learned this from in just a second, but more than anything with a tornado, uh, people are killed by debris.
that
You
makes
don't get killed by like being swept up. You get killed by the debris of the tornado. Like it rips apart boards and metal and all sorts of, it picks up all these things. It's not like you're gonna get hit with a beach ball. You're gonna get hit with like somebody's trampoline parts, like
it's scary. It's scary and the scene of the house being blown away. I didn't like that. I just for being a tornado movie, I liked it a lot more than I thought because I liked the plot. Like I overall liked the characters. I felt so bad for Melissa though. Like I felt so bad when they kissed. I was like, bro, she just ended things with you because you were still in love with Joe. And I don't know. I feel like I'm supposed to like support that and be like, yay, like they're back together or whatever. But I felt bad for
but
her. I feel like,
that was why I think they wrote into the story that she wasn't even that sad about it.
yeah,
She
that
says
makes
like it doesn't even bother me that much, like because I think she realized like they weren't right for each other.
sense, especially with everything going on. Yes. But do you want to know my rating?
Yeah, what's your rating?
8.5 out of 10.
Ooh, I don't mind that. I'll
Yeah.
take it.
Yeah. I definitely like You've Got Mail better just because like I love romance and that was a cute movie. But it's not a 10 because of the tornado.
Well, this is not, I mean, we literally went from comfort food to like risky, risky stuff, right? Extreme sports kind of, So I would expect that you would definitely rate it differently. Um,
Yeah.
but isn't, and I'm just gonna tell you and remind you, like, these are my top two favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not, and they just both happen to be in the 90's, but I just think it's so funny because like they're in some ways I guess they're similar because there's like a romance or whatever, but other than that, like everything is so different.
Yeah. It's funny.
So
I was thinking about that. I was like, dang, these are such different movies, and these are her two favorite movies. I was like, this is so funny.
Yeah, because this is my like maybe this is like my wild side or something because I was like very much obsessed with this movie. Like I said, especially in high school, where all I wanted to do was just be outside. I love driving. I love driving in my car, and yeah, I loved weather. Like I've always loved studying weather, but I never was good at earth sciences. And so if I had been better or encouraged, I think I was never really also encouraged in earth sciences other than my mom, I think. And I'm sure my dad would have totally gotten on board if I had shown interest, but that's not what I mean. But like my teachers were always just like, you're not good at science, kind of. And so I always just leaned into what I was good at and stayed away. But we met like a weatherman when I was like in second grade, and I was like obsessed with learning about cloud shapes and cloud formations. And so I think if I had been encouraged to get more into weather science, I probably would have been a meteorologist, but I never did well in earth sciences. So until college, and then I was like, man, I should have stayed with it, but I didn't. So it's okay.
That's fair. Yeah. Overall good movie. Overall good movie. I liked it. Yeah,
Well,
it's terrifying.
let's talk about some tornadoes.
Ah, okay.
So as we learn in the movie, tornadoes are ranked on the Fujita scale. It's named after Dr. Ted Fujita. Ted is like he adopted the name Theodore as his middle name, um, and went by Ted Fujita when he came over to the United States. He was also later nicknamed Mr. Tornado. Um, so there is actually a whole documentary about it if you want to learn more about him. Um, but his real name was like Tetsuya Theodore Fujita, so like he adopted the Theodore. Um, but he grew up in Japan. He lived in Fujita, or sorry, Dr. Fujita lived in Kokura, Japan during World War II. And this was a city that was actually spared due to cloud cover, and the bomb during World War II was dropped instead on Nagasaki. They did actually two flyovers of Kokura trying to drop the bomb, and they couldn't see their target because of how much cloud cover they have. And so they flew over to Nagasaki and dropped the bomb there. So he was saved by cloud cover. And he went on to study the damage caused by the nuclear explosions, and then went on to later study weather because of his being saved. But because of all of his work with studying the damage, he could tell like where the bomb exploded in relation to the ground, how everything like radiated outward, all that science that we know now about it having like a detonation point and what the words ground zero come from like this research, and then it's spreading outward. Um, so it was really interesting because then he went on to, like I said, later study weather. And then he came like thunderstorms. And then he came to America to do research at the University of Chicago.
Gosh, local.
So he's local, on severe thunderstorms there. And his research actually led him to studying tornadoes and their destruction because they are the most severe of thunderstorms. And he created the Fujita scale in 1971 based on the damage and the wind speed creating the damage. So an F0 is up to 72 miles per hour wind, and it can cause light damage. And an F5, as we see in the movie, are winds up to, and at the time, 318 miles an hour, causing strong frame houses to be completely ripped off their foundation and thrown. Now, this scale has since changed, and it's now called the Enhanced Fujita scale, instead of just the Fujita scale, because they've actually like been able to calculate exactly the better miles per hour of wind speed. And so it doesn't go up to like 318 miles per hour now. It goes like to two something. I'm guessing that wind doesn't go up to 318 miles per hour, but I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Um, so I actually, even though I've seen this movie like hundreds of times, had actually known nothing of Dr. Fujita. But last year I attended a storm spotter training class so I could be an official storm spotter. And I learned at that class that Dr. Fujita actually hated the movie Twister because of its science inaccuracies. Um, and when I had arrived to this training, all the seats were like full that they had out, and all the desks were taken. And so I had to go to the back of the room and I had to get a chair and I had to drag it to a spot to like have that be my spot where I was going to sit. And when I walked in, it was like all older men, like very scary looking. Some of them were just kind of like intimidating and stern looking dudes. And there were like no women. I think there was like maybe two in the entire room, which was very weird. They just a bunch of grumpy dudes that didn't look very friendly. And so I had pulled my chair up to this like very friendly, nice looking, like safe older Asian gentleman. And when it began, the speaker was like, "We have storm royalty in the audience." And he like points over by me. He points to the guy next to me, the gentleman that I sat next to. And I learned that I sat next to Professor Kazuya Fujita. And he is professor emeritus at Michigan State University, and his specialty is earthquakes in Michigan and geology of Northeastern Asia and North American Eurasia tectonic plates. But he's also the son of Ted Fujita, or Mr. Tornado. So he is Mr. Tornado's son, and he was like really embarrassed to be recognized as like royalty for his father's accomplishments. Something he gave me the impression that he'd been dealing with his entire life. He was just like, I wish there was a back door to this place where I could have snuck in and they didn't know that I was here. Uh, but he did show me his padfolio. He had his dad's padfolio that says like Mr. Tornado on the inside, which was really cool. And on a break, we were talking about like growing up in the house with his dad. And he told me that he would take vacations in the car with his parents. Um, but they were often like chasing down the aftermath of the damage of a tornado or a storm. And that's how he's like where other people would go like on spring break to Florida, like we would be driving to a desolated community after a tornado had been through it. Um, but we did bond that my grandfather used to take my mother and uncles on the roof during a storm. Like when there was a really bad storm, they would like, there's like a potential tornado, they would go up on the roof to like watch it. My mom still jokes about this. But that's what his father did too, and he thinks that it's crazy. He said it's really silly because most people get impaled with debris if it's a tornado. So like, why would you be up on the roof? And then also like a tornado is a thunderstorm, so like you could be struck by lightning too. Um, so, but we did talk about the movie, and I had said that he had said that his dad, like he told me several times, his dad like hated this movie. And I reminded him that just like Jurassic Park, like launched a big boost of people interested in paleontology, like Twister boosted this huge influx of people interested in meteorology. So it's like even if you hate the science doesn't have to be real. The story needs to feel real, and that call and influence needs to be real. That call of like service to do this, to like help fix this. And that's what it was. That's what that movie served as. So anyway, I left really excited from that training and then from meeting him and talking to him, um, and stepping outside my comfort zone and doing something new by going to that training by myself. But I learned that tornadoes form from a huge thunderstorm, like we talked about. So what happens is inside, the warm, humid air rises and the cool air falls. So that's what's making the spinning, right? And along with rain or hail is also falling, causing that spinning air current that can drop down from this because it starts spinning up above and then it drops down. And that's why when you should really watch your weather when you have like that change in temperature of the hot and cold air that comes in, and it brings large thunderstorms because that's what happens.
Oh, wait, that makes sense. That's cool.
So
Yay.
during Mr. Tornado's time, April 3rd and 4th in 1974, this is kind of what that Twister story is built on. There was a huge, what they call a super outbreak. He had documented the aftermath and patterns of it. There were 315 deaths, 5,400 84 injuries. There was 2,598 miles of damage. He had calculated that there had been a total of 148 tornadoes that had torn through 13 states in a 17-hour period. And he confirmed that a tornado is several spinning vortices within one tornado, and that's what happened as a part of the 1974 super outbreak. So it was storm one right after the other, right after the other. And he did these maps of like how far the tornado went, and he like ranked the Fujita scale as they went. Like did they like gain in intensity and then lose in intensity? So that's my Mr. Tornado tie-in and learning about tornadoes. Now there is a whole documentary on him that you can actually watch. It's on PBS. So I think on PBS you can actually watch it on their channel on their website for free, but you can also rent it on Amazon. But it's the Mr. Tornado documentary.
Oh, I like that he was called that. That's cool.
That was his nickname. It's pretty interesting. I like wish that I had watched it and known about it before I met his son because then I think I would have probably just talked to him about other things besides tornadoes. But of course I was like so starstruck. Yeah, I would have probably asked him about earthquakes because that would have been an interesting conversation, and he would have been probably more satisfied to talk about that than his dad's tornado stuff. But I do know people that, and you know people, and we'll talk later, but that we know that had him as a professor too. So
It's cool. I think you mentioned that. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Dang. Wait. So like getting to personally meet the son is crazy.
yeah, I mean, it was cool. I mean, he doesn't probably want to be known as the son of Mr. Tornado. He probably has like I mean, he has a really good reputation for science in his own right, in his own field, and he knows a lot about storms.
That's
Um, but he goes to like get the updated certification card, that we get at the end of the training. Um, but yeah, he was very, very nice. I really wish that I had gone and taken his classes before he became a professor emeritus because I bet I would feel more confident in my earth sciences if I learned from him just because he was really easy to like talk to and learn from, it felt like. Um, so I was kind of bummed that I was like, I just met you and you're kind of retired. So nuts. Oh well.
gosh darn it. That's cool though.
So we are going to be continuing our science watch, kind of, as we go into our next movie. Are you ready?
Yeah, that's unnerving. Okay.
Well, our next movie is a throwback. It's actually not from the 90's. It's a 1985 sci-fi classic that we could not go any further until we watched it. To bring you up to speed to the 90's, you have to watch this one. So, a small town California teen, Marty McFly, is thrown back into the 50's when an experiment by his eccentric scientist friend Doc Brown goes awry. Traveling through time in a modified DeLorean car, Marty encounters young versions of his parents and must make sure that they fall in love or he'll cease to exist. Even more dauntingly, Marty has to return to his own time and save the life of Doc Brown. So, if you don't recognize the synopsis, you should watch along with us for this week because we are going back to the future.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. I'm really excited for this one. I needed to watch this at some point. I'm excited.
Yes. Yep. There are a few 80's movies that will hit eventually, but we tried to slate only a couple this year so that we're not spoiling our 90's streak. But this is one of my absolute favorite movies of all time, top three probably, which is why we're hitting it next. And it is a really good movie that you'll understand references to in shows today. Like there is a show on today that referenced this movie. So just understanding what happens in this movie and kind of seeing it. But there's some science a little bit to it with time travel that
Uh,
you'll learn about, and what happens with time travel and what you can do to affect timelines. And yeah, it'll be really good. Any questions?
oh, I'm excited though. I'm really excited for this one. Okay. I like his name, Marty McFly.
Marty McFly. And that is played. Do you know who's in this movie?
No, not at all. I literally know like nothing about this movie except that it's about time travel.
Okay. So, this he is played by Michael J. Fox, which is one of Michael J. Fox's like main roles besides Alex P. Keaton. I mean, Michael J. Fox was in a few other things before his diagnosis, but um I think that we'll get into like talking about Michael J. Fox and my obsession with him after on the next pod for sure. And all that he has done since and everything that he has been in and the effect that he has on the world essentially. And then we'll also probably do a little side discussion about some of the other things with Michael J. Fox. But yeah, you'll get to like learn what a DeLorean is and um, I think it'll be great. But Leah Thompson's in it. Crispin Glover, sorry. Christopher Lloyd. Trying to think if there's anybody you might recognize Thomas Wilson. He's in a lot of things now because of his role in this. Billy Zane's in it. Um, yeah, we'll have to see who I don't know if you'll recognize any of these people, but Christopher Lloyd you'll see probably again in 90's movies. Um, yeah, I think it'll be good though. We'll see. We'll find some other things that'll kind of tie some of these people to you.
Okay, I'm excited. Yeah, I've been wanting to watch this one, so I'm excited that we're doing it. And we're gonna watch it right before your birthday. Birthday.
Yes. So, yeah, and we'll be recording around my birthday. But yeah, it'll be really good. It'll be good to watch this one. And then yeah, we've got a few other great movies following this, so I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
Keep
Yay!
it going.
Okay, let's
All
go.
right. Well, now before we sign off, we were recently requested several times to cover one particular 90's movie. Hannah, do you want to tell them what it is?
Fight Club.
Okay. And Hannah, have you seen Fight Club?
No, but I can't talk about it.
So, yeah, for well, all of you listening, what is the number one rule of Fight Club? You don't talk about Fight Club. So, unfortunately, we will not be covering this movie because we can't. So, stop asking. We can't cover it. Can't talk about it. So,
Yes.
Hannah will have to watch it on her own, and we won't be able to talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for this episode of Millennial Meets Gen Z. Thanks for hanging out with us and watching along with one of my favorite movies of all time. Don't forget to follow the podcast so that you can catch each new episode. You can leave a review if you're enjoying it. Share it with your friends, please, young and old. And come find us on Instagram and Facebook for clips, photos, and all the moments that we don't fit into the episode or more information on the things that did. So thank you all.
Thanks for listening, everybody.